Personnel, we did experience resignations in the code compliance department, building inspector, and a code officer both resigned. Both were pending disciplinary action and chose to resign first. In the process of hiring another building inspector. Darlene Smith has returned to the department, and Jones. I'm just reading off his. And began work in January. We did have a police cadet that failed the police academy. Unfortunately, he has been separated from the department. One officer received disciplinary action for police performance. Was not due to any misconduct. Was related to an administrative issue. Performance plan has been in place, so officer will ultimately gain success. As far as training goes, 279 training hours for the month. Continue to work on a training facility design, looking at some grants for that. Several classes going on. We received our new fire engine on Monday, so we are in the process of outfitting the new engine. And the other one needs to go in for some repair as soon as that goes in service. Submitted a couple more grants, one for new firefighting PPE. We've submitted that the last 4 years, so we're hoping this time's the charm. And then a grant through Cook. Unfortunately, on the police side, I can't answer a lot of questions because I am the fire marshal, but if you have any questions on the, I can get back to Director McGinnis, I'll be happy to, and then on the fire side, I'm happy to answer questions.
Anyone have any questions on that? No? Thank you.
Maurice.
Code compliance by our code compliance officer, Maurice.
Good evening, everyone. In the code compliance office, I'm working on several different things in my office as far as inspections for rental properties, taking calls, answering questions from citizens, and working with some builders here in the city. Electrical permits, we only took in 2 electrical permits for the month of January for $390. Building permits 6 at $711. The dump sites, we've been keeping a close eye on those. Nothing's really been going on, but we have definitely been keeping our eyes on certain areas here in the city. Enforcement actions, we haven't did any enforcement actions for the month of July. I haven't received any business registration licenses just yet. I got a couple that come into my office here this past week. Rental registrations, nothing for the month of January. And also certificate of occupancies. Only time that we really give out certificate of occupancies and a completion is after a rental inspection has been completed and all the deficiencies in the house has been taken care of. So that can go, you have 30 days to comply, and after that 30 days is when the certificate of occupancy and your compliance letter is issued out. Some things that are still under review, I think on the legislative committee is dealing with rental properties for insurance, enforcement of business licenses and their hours. I wasn't there for that, so I can't give you too much detail on that. But far as the process on nuisance and notifications, I think the director was working with the legislative committee as well on that. And sir, that is it for my report.
This is the code.
Yep.
Thank you, sir.
Well,
Any questions on our code compliance? Commissioner Henry.
I'm the chair, I'm sorry, but I would like to revert back to fire and ask a question from him since he's here. There were several questions I needed to ask the police, but I'll ask that later when they're present. But, we just got approved to get the washing machines and the dryer.
Mhm.
And I know there was a grant that was, given for that.
Correct.
There was a charge of $115 reimbursement to someone for the dryer. Do you have any information on what happened in that transaction?
It was for the plumbing and the electrical for the dryer. They were installing plumbing and electrical, and they, Fresh Decor, where we have our charge account, didn't have the supplies they needed, so they had to go to Home Depot and get some supplies.
And it wasn't included in the grant?
No. Well, no, it would have been part of the grant. Yes, the grant should pay for that. Yes, it was on the PO. We did write that it was part of the grant.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our next item on the agenda, done. Thank you guys. I'm quite sure you guys have been busy and excited. Thank you very much. Our next item on the agenda is lovely people. We're gonna have a presentation proposed, reimagination, design, Broadway / June Woods Park. And also, along with that presentation, included will be Charles Yarrow Park. And here we go. Lovely Miss.
Thank you, Commissioner Edwards. Good evening, everyone. My name is Stephanie Harvey Vandenberg. I sit in the community and corporate relations space and the foundation at Whirlpool Corporation. And we are here today to share with you, with my colleague, Daniel Page Wood, and I will allow him to introduce himself. But it's a continuum of the partnership and the relationship that we have been working to strengthen with the City of Benton Harbor through a part of one of our work streams for our Racial Equality Pledge and our commitment to the community to help to support revitalization of parks in the community. And so today we're here to continue along that journey as we're coming off of Day of Impact last year at Union Park. And then this year, we're looking at Day of Impact 2023, where we are exploring the opportunity and the possibility of revitalizing 2 or more parks this spring. So I will kind of pass it to my colleague here, Daniel, and allow him to introduce himself and take it away on the presentation.
All right. Thanks, Stephanie. Good evening, everyone. My name is Dan Pagewood. I am part of the design department at Whirlpool. So it's my privilege tonight to be able to share with you a few ideas and concepts on 2 of the parks. This work is representative of a team behind me, so happy to share this with you, and I'll jump right in. So if you direct your attention to the monitors, we're going to go through a couple different ways to visualize what these parks could look like. Start off with a few design goals. What did we keep in mind when we started to look at these? And then we'll get into both Broadway, soon to be June Woods, and then Yarborough. So from a design goals perspective, the ask for our team was, how do we renew, refresh, and reimagine these parks? So certainly we want to build on what's there today and consider the use and how it can best serve the communities. So that was front and center in our minds as we did this. We want to celebrate and enhance, wherever possible, a connection to historical aspects of the parks, reuse existing elements wherever possible, ensure that the park is set up to serve the needs of the community, and then inspire residents and visitors to enjoy Benton Harbor City Parks.
Let me ask you, can you enlarge your print a little bit so the audience can see?
I can.
That's big. If you make it that size, everybody can see it.
Okay.
It's the same size on that screen.
Yeah.
It is. It's the same size on
But-
that. The same
yeah,
on this
same
side. It's the
size.
same on that.
Right, but the other one, go back one, and it's hard to see, they can't see.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
I can adjust that.
Would it be better for everyone? Would it be better for the lights out?
Maybe
We
if
can
you want
try
to
it.
turn one down. Oh,
Better?
that's much
That's
better.
quick.
Okay.
All right.
Yep.
Okay, so for each park, we have a series of what we're calling common features. So we have 3 options that we'll be walking through. And in each of those options, these will be common. So I wanted to cover them once. It'll save us a little time, and then we won't cover them individually as we go through the options. So for Broadway Park or June Woods, we're proposing a June Woods memorial. So that will be present in each of the designs. Updating and new trash cans. And I guess one other note to keep in mind, the images up here that we're showing are for reference only. It doesn't mean that we're suggesting that specific trash can or that specific grill. Bike racks are a common theme. We'd like to see rubber mulch or play mulch introduced to several of the play areas. We're proposing new backboards and hoops for the basketball court areas. We're going to talk about lighting, and the lighting that we're talking about will be for pathway and ambient lighting, not to broadly light up the entire parks, but more pathway lighting. Drinking fountains is something that we'd like to have discussion around. Is that a need and an opportunity? Grills to replace the grills that are not functioning at this point. Picnic tables, resurfacing the basketball courts, and then a couple options where we are grouping playgrounds together to make them a little bit more user-friendly. So you'll see all of these in each of the 3 designs, but I won't talk specifically about them unless there's any questions. I'm going to go through this page really quickly. This is just a summary. We have a detail of each option or each layout. So I'm just going to go right on to those so we can dig into the details. So option A, this is for Broadway Park. Pavone is at the top of the screen. Broadway is at the bottom. The key elements that are unique to this design are listed on the right-hand side. It includes a turf field, several additional benches around the basketball areas, additional pavilions, trees, new sidewalks, and entryways. So let me kind of walk through these with the layout. So obviously in the upper left-hand corner, you can see the darker green area. This could be some sort of a turf field that could be utilized in different ways. It could be set for soccer. It could be set for football. But it's a dedicated, large open area that would be available to the public to utilize in different ways. Nice thing about the turf field is little maintenance. You don't have to worry about the grass dying or anything like that. You always have a pretty usable field for games and activities. Benches, the influx of benches here is really to say, how do we include more seating area around the basketball areas, but then also around the playground equipment, making it more family friendly, giving specific areas for people to sit down and relax while their kids or family are playing. Pavilions, there is an existing pavilion there today, but we're suggesting that we could perhaps add to those. Again, increases the overall usability of the park, provides more shade from either sun or rain, depending on the condition, and would like to see those clustered around the play areas and then some additional ones by the basketball courts. Proposing some additional trees, you can see by the circles there. New sidewalks to provide more connectivity and more accessibility for people that may be using a wheelchair or people that may be pushing a stroller to grant more access to those areas of the park. And then finally, entryways. Today we have I believe it's a cast stone archway at each of the entries with the name of City Park. And since this will be transitioning to June Woods Park, we're proposing that we would relook at those entryways to be new, reflecting June Woods Park, and then part of that would be repurposed as the June Woods Memorial. Moving to option B. Key elements in this design would be a central memorial area, a perimeter walk or jog track, workout stations, what we're calling connected spaces, and again, additional trees and additional pavilions. So I think one of the elements about this design that I really like is that perimeter walk and jog track. So if you see that brown path around the perimeter of the park, something that I've seen at a lot of parks and I think is nice is, if you want to go for a walk or get some exercise in, if you're pushing a stroller, it's nice to be able to make a large continuous loop around the park with basically an uninterrupted pathway. So proposing that perimeter path there. And then the circles that you see along the path would be those workout stations. Again, I've seen trails like this or pathways where there may be a chin-up bar or a bar that you could use for stretching, but different activity stations along that. Additionally, you could have signage that would say, if you start here, you've completed a quarter mile after one loop around, or those type of elements could all be incorporated into it. You see the large circular area in the center, creating a bit more of a dedicated space for a June Woods Memorial, could occupy that space. The idea of connected spaces, so you can see the the dark gray outline that's now around the basketball court areas, and then the two circular playgrounds. This is a proposal to tie all that together with that kind of rubberized mulch. The idea being that you've got a soft surface adjacent to the basketball courts, and then for the play areas, the basketball court area could help with potentially slowing down a ball that's rolling off the court, those type of things. Again, of additional pavilions, building on the one that's there, providing more opportunities for shade as well. And then moving to option C. This one we looked at some additional elements, looked at what it might take to bring in some parking to the site itself, if that was a desire. Additional benches and picnic tables are options here. A large pavilion near the basketball court, kind of the creation of a large concrete plaza area, additional small pavilions, and then playground access. So working through these, you can see first at the top of the screen coming off of Pavone, there's a potential parking area identified there. And then that also plays into our last point of that playground access. So by adding a bit more concrete to that parking area, you can see where we've linked those two playground areas to that to that parking area, which could make it for very easy access for families, especially with younger children, to get safely out of their car and then go over and use and enjoy the playground spaces. We're also showing an optional parking area off of Broadway. This one will be more dedicated towards the basketball courts as they are adjacent to that. Both of the parking areas would be connected, of course, to the pathways by walkways or concrete sidewalks to make sure that there's the connectivity through the whole area. In this option, instead of surrounding the basketball courts with that mulch area, this is an option where we bring kind of concrete. And by adding the concrete to the existing basketball court areas, you do create kind of that large concrete plaza feel. It helps everything feel quite connected. You could differentiate the walk space versus the court area by the color that it's refinished in. And then you can see the large pavilion that we're proposing kind of in the center area of the basketball courts, kind of dedicated to that space. Could create a good viewing area that, again, is shaded and protected. And then finally, the benches and picnic tables. So you can see going up and down on the screen near the smaller court, we're proposing some additional picnic tables in that space, and then benches around in the rest of the space. So one way to think about these three layouts, it's not 1, 2, or 3, but we're trying to highlight a lot of different options in each of those. So we can pick and choose what makes the most sense for the overall design that will best serve the community. So if we see something that we like in option A and we want to try and add it with option C, all of those are possible. So I'm going to take a break for a minute, and before we move into Yarborough, see if there's any comments or questions on any of the designs that we've gone through so far.
Like Steve?
Thank you.
Thank you very much on that one. Any questions on this specific part, Broadway/June Woods? Commissioner Henry?
Thank you, Honorable Chair. I want to thank you guys. You did a really great job. I saw a lot of great ideas. I'm glad we can incorporate the greater ones and I think that, and I appreciate you also giving us for a hand. This is coming, and it is not a project that's already complete. We do have something to say about it. So I appreciate that, and I'm looking forward to Broadway Park being better. My only comment to Chair is Broadway Park was a kiddie park. And it was a very good kiddie park. And somebody had this great idea that they were going to put those basketball courts there. And now it's not a kiddie park. I mean, it is a kiddie park because the kids can go over there and play.
Mm-hmm.
But you have such a element of basketball.
Mm-hmm.
I have a lot of parents that say, no, we won't go. We can't take our little ones there.
Mhm. Mhm.
So I just love to give information that some people might not remember, but that was a kiddie park at one time.
And I see Mrs. Vandenberg, she's taking notes, so
Mhm.
it is duly noted.
I am, and I appreciate Commissioner Henry. I appreciate that insight because that's why we're here. We're here to hear your voices, to get feedback and input. Like these are just concepts and ideas based off of us walking through the park and looking to sustain what's there, but then also amplify and increase the possibilities how it could be used even more. And so having some of that historical insight is valuable to us. I think it's going to boil down to we will not do anything to this park that the city will not approve and agree to. Okay, so let me say that. And so if but at the same time, we need some direction on who's going to make that decision, because to take away what's already there, sometimes change is hard. And I don't want, in full disclosure, I do not want the perception to be Whirlpool came in here and took our basketball courts out. That's not the case, right? So I think, and I'm looking to Mr. Alex and I'm looking to Mr. Ellis to be able to kind of give us some direction if that is what we would do. And I think for us, what we can do is go back and reimagine the park without basketball courts in it. What would it look like to make it a kiddie park again, as you've described? And then come back and say, okay, this is the option. Where do we meet? Halfway in the middle or all or nothing? So I'm willing to do that, but I'm going to need some direction from leadership here on what that needs to be once we come back with new renderings. Okay.
Fair enough,
Okay.
Commissioner.
That's fair enough.
And I
We
must say
appreciate
that
all your-
Commissioner Henry, this park is in her ward. Am I correct? Yes.
It also what's up to Ward One.
Yeah, butts up to.
Oh, okay. So neighboring parks, if we want to say.
Ward 1 and 3.
Mhm.
Okay. So one of you guys got to split the half court, the basketball court.
And one of
Put the baby in half and throw it.
And one of the things that my colleague, as he described the courts, if you look at the court, the lower court that's closest to the parking area there, and even in option A, we envision that would be a kiddie court, because what we heard from, and we're still carrying over from the experience that was shared with us at Union Park, the families that lived in that neighborhood were apprehensive to allow their younger children to go in the park because they didn't feel like it was enough there for them to do. So that's a common theme, right? And so what we thought we would do as an alternative is, instead of removing that fourth court, let's make that a kiddie court with a kiddie rim so that the young kids can come and play hoops, and that gives them some activity to do, which is the rationale behind, Dan, if you could go back to option A, why we added that turf field, because that gives the young people options to do other things if they don't want to just shoot hoops, right? And so that was the other alternative. And then there's playground equipment there. So we were trying to incorporate something for everybody at different age levels, and even for the adults and the parents. So I just want to,
Great job. I had to
Okay.
say that. Great
Okay.
job.
okay.
Thank you. Commissioner Isom.
Yes, I was just thinking that the perimeter running track, walking track, that'll be good for families,
Mhm.
moms, older senior citizens too, and with the turf. I think both of those together would bring families out to walk and still have the small basketball court, and maybe, yeah, I think so. That turf would be great. We play flag football, volleyball out there, pickleball.
Mhm.
ball.
Okay.
Curling.
Okay, great. It's great dialogue.
That's it.
All right.
So our next presentation will be Yarborough Park.
If we could.
Oh, I'm sorry, Commissioner.
Just two thoughts. One, if at all possible, bathrooms. And secondly, perhaps sort of a shaded, protected area
Mhm.
where seniors and people in wheelchairs can kind of sit off at and just enjoy watching what's going on and so forth, without fear of getting run over by somebody running after a ball or whatever,
Mhm.
or if the weather changes and it rains or whatever.
Okay.
This is
Okay.
Good, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's it. Mr. Duncan.
This is why a lot of the citizens should be in this meeting. It should have been televised or something. But it is a small part, and I thought I heard you say something about putting parking in there somewhere.
And
It
one
was
of the options.
One option that was explored.
Mhm.
Forget that, please. I live on Broadway, and I'm saying, please,
Okay.
I don't know how, no other way to say it.
Okay.
Good.
You guys gonna soft top the courts?
Mm-hmm. We resurfaced them with the asphalt like we did at Union Park.
All right, then another suggestion, that's why I haven't been over there yet, but if it's soft, but when it's not tearing our knees up, that would be a good thing for our kids.
Mm-hmm.
The guys, the older kids, they need to be inside. It's a small park, and a lot of things are said and done around with older kids. I've worked at Parks and Recreation before, so I got a pretty good idea that it'd be best for them to be inside their court, where a lot of things not being seen and said. And my other thought was about the signage. I don't like the signage like at Union Park with the whirlpool all over it. I mean, if you're doing something, this is my opinion. If you're doing something for our neighborhood, just do the damn thing and let it be done. You don't have to rub a sore. I mean, we've been
I hear what you're
we've
saying.
been branded a lot.
Okay.
It's just, and another thing, it's like Gene Clark Park. Nobody authorized, the citizens didn't authorize. I am gonna do it because everybody needs to know that we don't want to be branded, and we don't want a piece of partner. And if you ask the citizens how they feel about that, I'm sure they'll say the same thing. A piece of partner. You've been here for 90, 100, 200 years. And here you are now. You know how many old people have died out of this city? So if you sit up, you wait on the property, you buy it. I'm talking about different pots of money, because you never say it's the same, but it is the same, and we know this. I do. I've been here long enough to know right from wrong too. So if you come in to do it our way.
That's why we're here. We're here to do it.
But
That's why
then
we're
you have to
here.
have
And that's
more
why we meet
citizens,
with the,
to have more citizens in here making these decisions. Because you guys, I've seen it happen in here where you got people are coming here and say, okay, and it's done deal. And the citizens weren't totally involved in it. And that's what I would like to see, for them to sit up and design their own park. They can't do it if they're not here, they're not doing it, but
Point of order, Chair.
stop me then.
let me just say
Because
this, and we can move on, we
I'm
can move
good.
on, but
I've
this is
said
great
all I need to
conversation.
say
Yes,
anyway.
sir.
I wasn't trying to
I know you weren't.
be
I know you
put
weren't
off or
belaboring
slow
and
down my
absolutely.
speech or whatever.
Yes, sir.
But
I receive that. I do, Mr. Duncan. I do. I hear you and I feel you. And I see your heart. And let me just say this. We Whirlpool are not here to be gratuitous. Let me hear me. It's just
some
let
of
me
us don't
finish.
understand them kind of words now.
We're not here to be self-promoting. We're not here to be self-promoting. And so we're here because the conversation that we're having today about what you see and what can happen and what the possibilities are, we're asking for your thoughts and opinions. Let me finish. Let me finish because I listened to you. Now let me finish, okay? And so when I say we're not here to be self-promoting, when we put that signage at Union Park, it wasn't to be self-promoting. It was, let me hear, maybe it was, everybody is left to interpretation of what they perceive things to be. But we needed to put that signage there, Mr. Duncan, because the park was under construction. And so because the park was under construction, we wanted the neighbors, the neighborhood and the residents to know and understand what kind of construction was happening and why it was happening, right? Because there was a lot of uncertainty around who was doing the work in the park. That's all it was. And we were giving the neighborhood and the residents an idea of when we anticipated that project was going to be completed. That signage was, now let me just say this. What we do need to do, and I will happily work with Mr. Alex and Mr. Ellis, it is time for that signage to come down because the intent of the signage was only to be there for the duration of the revitalization of that park. Now that we've done that, it's time for it to come down. So I agree with you on that. So I'm here, we're here because we care about this community. Will I say to you that we've always done things the right way? No. We've always had the best intention. So sometimes people's intentions in the absence of open dialogue, when you feel psychologically safe to have a conversation, one leaves one to own interpretation. But I wouldn't be sitting here today if there was an agenda, because I'm a Benton Harbor native and I love this place. I was raised here. My mom and dad raised me here, and I love everybody in this community. There's no way you're going to get me to sit here in front of my people and have an agenda where I'm going to be duplicitous in what I'm doing, what I'm saying, and how I'm leaving. We came and asked the city if they would like us to come and help to support and revitalize the park. We didn't come and say this is what we're doing. We came and we had a conversation. And just so that you know, we meet with Mr. Ellis and Mr. Alex every third Thursday of the month. And we have conversations on progress, updates, and we do nothing until they tell us yes. There are constant communications going back and forth in emails to inform them of updates that have come out of meetings that we have had with them. So again, that's why we're here today. And I also plan to go and knock on some doors in the neighborhood of these parks to ask those who live in the park, across the street from the park, just like we did at Union Park. What do you see? What would you like to have? What's missing? What are some of the pain points and the barriers in this park so that we can not only continue to make the park safer, but we can also increase the use and how it's being used, not just by the kids, but also by the adults and the families so that everybody can benefit from it.
I'm glad I made you say all of that because you're being taped and the community can also hear you.
Okay.
And that's really some of the things that I do because I know it took a long time to get this system in these chambers for this very same reason.
Mm-hmm.
And I thank you for what you're doing. I have nothing against what you're doing. I just want the citizens to be involved totally.
Thank
And
you,
we do
Mr. Duncan.
too. And we do too.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much. Hopefully everybody understood that dialogue was clarified. We will move on to Yarborough Park, correct?
Yes, sir.
Correct, Yarborough Park.
All right, very good.
Lights, please.
So we're going to have the same approach to Yarborough Park, a few common features, and then I'll go through each of the couple options in detail. So similar features here where we would propose a Yarborough Park memorial for Mr. Charles Yarborough. Updated trash cans, bike racks, the rubber mulch that we talked about, again, pathway lighting where appropriate, the drinking fountains, grills, picnic tables. In this park, we were asked to consider a bathroom, so there will be a bathroom that is shown in all three options. And then also all three options would be promoting of resurfacing the existing deck or pier or whatever you want to call that structure that's right down on the waterway. So all new surfacing there to have that looking very refreshed. So these would be common and carried through all the designs. Again, a summary, I'm going to go right into the details so we can talk about each of these layouts. So our orientation here, you can see the blue, so that would be the river on the left-hand side of our screen. And then parking lot at the bottom. So option A, key elements for this, what we're calling additional parking, a corner stage area, a family-focused area, and additional trees. One thing I want to start off by saying is for each of the options where we talk about a stage area, I want to talk about what we mean by stage area. We're not necessarily proposing that we go build some type of a permanent element there, but we're indicating that based on the layout of the park, this is where we see the prime or best location for a stage, whether it's something that comes in occasionally when it's needed, whether it's a raised area, whether it's a lowered area, whatever that might be. That's simply the area that we've identified as serving the best layout or the best location to serve these layouts. So let's get into the key elements. The first one is what we're calling additional parking. So if you pull into the parking area off the roundabout there, when you come in, there's kind of a bottleneck where there's grass on either side. It looks like we could probably capture some additional parking in that area, maybe 10 to 12 spaces. That was one of the requests that we heard early on, is maybe there's a need for additional parking. So that we identified as a potential area where we could add that. In this option, we have the stage in the upper right-hand corner of the plan there, kind of backed up against part of the parking area for the boat launch, which is adjacent to this property, leaving the center area of the park primarily wide open for use both for events and then just by families that may want to visit there. The family focused area, now that kind of comes down to more the bottom left of the screen or mid left side of the screen. You can see the brown area is where we're proposing to relocate the play structure, have a nice large area there. You can see the small gray area, which is the existing shelter that's right by the dock. And then we're also proposing the bathrooms to be located opposite the play area across from that shelter space. What we think works nice about this design, and then you can see the additional trees along the boulevard and then by the parking area. What this does is those additional trees start to act as kind of a little bit of a visual barrier, if you were around the park. It starts to make the park feel really nestled in the green space by the trees and then the water. So it really kind of gives it a natural feel all around the perimeter. We're showing a little bit of an opening there by the roundabout. So as you circle through that, or you're coming down, I think that's Empire, you get a glimpse into the park and you can kind of see diagonally through. The other nice thing is when you've got that cluster of the bathrooms, the play area, and the shelter, it becomes a nice area for a family, especially if you have children, to kind of hang out more near that side, but still enjoy a performance or something if there is on stage. So you could still have a nice sight line to it, but you could stay in that play area and near the restrooms if you were kind of keeping track of kids as your kids run around like mine do. So that's option A. Option B, here we've kind of maximized parking if that was something that people were interested in doing. This is a central stage area and then a riverfront pavilion and again additional trees. So starting with that additional parking area, we're capturing some of that parking or potential opportunity along the entry. And then we're also bumping the upper edge of it just up a little bit to where we can get a center aisle of parking in there as well. So we've got an increase in the overall number of parking spaces that way. In this option, let me jump up to the middle now. I think if I have one more button, yeah. So we're showing the central stage area. And I wanted to show an example of, what kind of this looks like in some other parks that we have seen. So I like the interest of the image that shows in there where you've got the low area and then seating that's basically built into kind of the perimeter of the circle area. It could be really interesting for, seating when there's not an event going on, but also when there are as well. That then from the stage area kind of moving out, we've got the play area in a similar location near that shelter area, kind of radiating off the central circle element. The bathrooms are also on an arc that kind of is designed to be anchored with that stage area closer to the parking lot. And then in this one, we're showing a pavilion kind of center above the play area that could be really nice to interact with both the river, the waterfront, but then also the stage area if there was an event going on as well. So that's the riverfront pavilion. And then you can see the red dot there kind of near the the existing shelter area that's a potential location for the memorial that we're talking about. And then our final option, we have what we call adjusted parking, a west stage area, a boardwalk, riverfront playground, and again, the additional trees. I don't think I need to talk about the trees. That's the same concept. When we put together this option, we got thinking about it. One of the things that really makes this park special is the fact that it's on the river. And so we thought, well, let's take a look at this where we really celebrate the fact that it's on the water and give as many people as possible the opportunity to engage with that. So in this option here, you can see that we've actually pulled the parking over a little bit and captured some of that area that today is concrete. We've used that little additional parking by the entry. So we're hoping that that's pretty close to a net for the parking. We don't lose too many, I don't think. But what that does is it gives us the opportunity to put that play area where we've got views of the water. And then by introducing a potential, long boardwalk or elements of boardwalk along that riverfront, basically extending that deck area that's there today, you start to create a nice element down at that bottom left area of the park where today the parking gets the view and the interaction with the river. But this would be a great way to build a plaza space and play area where the people attending the park can really enjoy that. So this space, I think that's one of the really nice features about this is that plaza area and connection to the water. You can see we're proposing bathrooms kind of up near the shelter area. The memorial is just above that on the screen. And in this case, the stage area would be with its back to the public boat launch area. So kind of nothing lost by putting our back up to that. It's not really a view today. And it's nice because it still leaves the majority of the park nice and wide open. And I think could even be potentially enjoyed by people perhaps passing on the river as well. So we really like this option. I think there's some nice elements of all of them, but this one I thought capturing that park and really letting it be enjoyed as what it is, a park, and celebrating that waterfront connection. So that's our three options for Yarborough Park. And again, just like the first one, all these elements you can kind of pick and choose from and what makes the most sense. And what do we want to see there? So I'll pause and take any questions.
Can you turn that light on, Mr. Duncan? Sure. What I'd like to do before we open it up for discussion is preface, particularly with Yarborough Park, ask the question, how do we get here, right? And so before we even, before Dan and his team began the design sprint session, we invited Commissioner Henderson and Commissioner Yarborough to a private session. Knowing and understanding that this park sits in Commissioner Henderson's ward, and then also this park is named after one of our former mayors, the late Charles Yarborough, and really wanted to have their thoughts and input before there was any even design work starting. We just wanted to hear, again, how they envision and wanted to reimagine this space and this park. And then talking with Ms. Yarborough, what is it that Mickey would like? And so some of those things, all of those ideas and those discussions that we had has shown up in one of all three of these concepts today. So again, we didn't get to this point with our architects and designs alone. It was through the voices of Commissioner Henderson and from Commissioner Yarborough, how we got to this point to make sure that we preserve this park in its current state, but also beautify and expand how this park can be used in the future. Commissioner Henderson, did you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, that's how we got to this point. And again, like Stephanie was talking about, they're asking what we wanted to see, and then in turn, we're going to ask the residents what parts of the designs that they like, and it may be something up there that we didn't think of. And so we'll use that same process of opening up and asking residents. So I think it was a really great process to be able to walk through and reimagine the parks.
And even once we got to this point, we did invite Mayor Yarborough back, and we invited Commissioner Henderson back and showed them what came out of those discussions that we had had with them initially to get their thoughts and feedback and input on what they saw. So keeping them consistently engaged in this process.
One thing I'd like to have you consider down, particularly down in the water, is some water, drinking water fountains. Mr. Duncan,
You want me to keep going?
go ahead,
I can add to that.
go ahead.
Mhm.
Yeah, plenty, several water fountains. Several bathrooms, running hot water. Put up some signs to help the fishermen be able to fish down there without the boats taking our lines. You can put that at the top of the list. That would help a couple of old people out, I know. And if you can't do that, I'm still gonna be okay with you guys' program. I've had so much problem trying to save our lines, have our fun. I even brought my book if you want to read
My husband's a
the
fisherman,
rights,
so
the
I'm
rights
good.
of the rights of a fisherman,
Uh-huh.
not to be irritated in any kind of a way.
Okay.
Help us with that part in particular. And I say a friendship is beginning to start.
Okay. Okay. Well, I appreciate the olive branch. Okay.
Thank you for hearing me out, though.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Duncan.
Ms.
Mr.
Kennard.
Kennard?
Yes, I think that the design is absolutely beautiful. And it's a beautiful area. The upkeep is the thing that I'm concerned about.
Mhm.
Once we get all of this money invested in there, beautiful place that families can go and enjoy.
Mhm.
The main thing is the upkeep. As I drive down that whole area where there's islands, I've seen neglect to all of those islands there. So leading up to there and getting to that part, I think it should be beautiful. But all of the money that's invested in this, it should be a lot of time and energy put into keeping it up.
Why don't
It
you
will
do it,
draw a
Mr.
lot of
Kennard?
people in. Pardon?
Why don't you do it with their help?
Well, I agree with you, Ms. Kennard, and that's, as I referenced with Sharon earlier with Mr. Duncan prior to you coming in, we have weekly, every third Thursday of the month, we meet with Mr. Ellis and Mr. Allen. And in full transparency, we have conversations around sustainability and maintenance. As we did with Union Park, and we've talked about programming, all right? Because we know that when there are things happening in the parks, we know that the things that shouldn't be happening are minimized, okay? And so I know that they are working to develop a comprehensive maintenance in the Parks and Recs program through these efforts, but I want to be clear, and I'm glad that you brought it up, is, we all just have to do our part. And we don't own the parks. We're here to help revitalize them, but they are owned by the city.
Right.
They are owned by the city, they're operated by the city, and they're maintained by the city. And so those are the conversations that we have had and we continue to have.
Right.
And so it's not lost. And it is in the forefront of discussions ongoing.
The reason I said that because the officials that oversee these things
Yes,
happen
ma'am.
is here.
Yes.
It is very important if you make an investment of this size, that there should be something in order to upkeep this, because it is just heartbreaking when you invest money in something and it's
Yes, ma'am.
destroyed within a season.
Yes, ma'am. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
I like option A,
Okay.
but I like the parking, the boardwalk, and option C. That's it.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
You said option A with the boardwalk,
And parking.
In the parking.
boardwalk and parking.
Thank you, sir. That's like me. I gotta have that soccer court or that turf field.
Mhm.
Put it somewhere else. I gotta have it.
And that was one of the things that Commissioner Yarbrough had shared when we'd asked about Mr. Mickey, and she said, she didn't want anything taken down. He loved green space. And he wanted it clean. And so we really took that in mind when we thought about what's an easy maintenance plan, where it can be clean and it's a lot of green, beautiful space, to reflect who he was and who he has been to our community. So that's why you see a lot of green space in there, because we wanted to protect that and preserve that.
Thank you, sir.
And
We have, Ms.
Yeah, just one
Oh, I'm sorry.
question. Where the restrooms are,
Yes.
closer to the water on the left
Mhm.
here, is that a pavilion? Or I see those,
Yeah.
oh, that's what that is, those three?
Yeah, that's the
Okay,
existing
okay.
pavilion.
Mhm.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Mr. Mitchell.
just want to remind you, put some trash receptacles in.
Oh, yeah, that's a common
all.
thing that,
Yeah.
yes.
Yes, sir.
I think the beauty of this too is when you talk about, Mrs. Kennard, when you talk about operations and maintenance, you know, the hope and anticipation is wherever we land and whatever we decide to do, this will be an opportunity for additional revenue to be generated for the city through parks and recs and programs where it can support maintenance, it can support programming that happens in the park. And I think that, you know, there's some great momentum being built around the different types of activities and events that are happening and taking place, particularly at Yarborough Park, that will bring our communities together throughout the Benton Harbor communities, but throughout Twin Cities and throughout Southwest Michigan and Barron County.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr.
I'd like to also ask if you might look into or examine whether perhaps DNR might give a permit to put some buoys along that fishing area that he's talking about, where boats come in and cut the lines and the fishing and so forth. You know, they have no wake zones and that type of thing. The boats, they do come along there and they move rather rapidly and they just go right over the fishing lines and so forth.
They don't care.
Some of that's got the attention.
And I can say yes and no, but I will also say wherever we land, and if that is a need, we don't, again, I'm going to go back to, we don't own the park. So,
It's on
nor
you
the
guys.
space. So if that is a need that the city wants to have for the residents who fish, then I would encourage you all to like reach out to the DNR and say, hey, this is what's happening at this park and this is what we'd like to see happen. Can you help us? And what does that look like?
And we can certainly do that.
Mm-hmm.
Just a little extra thumb on the scale.
Sure.
I'll make it happen.
Yeah, if there is work that's being done in the park, I think there would be even more incentive, right? And that's a motivation. You can leverage that for sure, but it's not Whirlpool's intent to kind of lean in where we shouldn't be. And we will help support whatever kind of communication that you need. If there's a letter of endorsement of that kind of thing with this project, we'd be happy to provide it by supporting.
Thank you.
Mhm.
I'm going to say because we have 4 more presentations, I'm going to take 2 more questions
Yeah,
on the park.
Yeah, can you get that,
Ms. Kennard,
can you get that letter, can you get that letter over there real quick? That way we can know where we stand about that.
Ms.
Because it's been a long time I've been asking about this. And if we can get that letter of endorse,
We'll work together.
Okay.
Ms. Kennard,
One other thing that I would like to suggest, that there's, I don't know how many toilets, porta toilets that they will have out there, but that I would hope that they would be serviced on a regular basis, because they had just one out there, and you could smell it all the way to the street there. So please, if they got that designed in, at least a number of them there. Yeah, bathroom, yeah, porta toilets.
well, we're talking about
Oh, they're gonna
permanent.
have those
regular
all-
permit.
Yeah, we're talking permanent,
Okay.
Ms. Kennard, we're talking permanent washrooms. So
Okay,
wherever you see the washrooms on these options, they are talking about permanent washrooms.
wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank
Mr.
you.
Thank you very much.
one last thing. The bathrooms close to the water, not a good idea. Back towards the entryway coming in is a better
That's a good call.
spot.
Okay.
Good.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Good job.
Chair.
Good working with you guys, and see you at the next meeting.
You will soon.
Thank you.
Y'all have a nice day.
Thank you very much.
We're going to move this far on our fourth item on the agenda. And this is the authorization of the city manager to execute a contract with SWT Excavating Incorporated for the contract for the 2023 hydrant replacement contract. Is anyone here for SWT?
No.
That's you, Jason? Okay. Thank you, Jason. So we were here, actually the next three?
Yeah.
Actually, so he gonna have to move. So we're gonna hear the next three, presentations by Jason.
Yep.
Thank you, Jason. Just say your name and.
For those that don't know me, I'm Jason Markwer, project manager with Ab Marsh, and I'm here actually to go over the next three items for consideration, moving these resolutions forward at the next commission meeting so that these contracts could possibly be executed and start very shortly. So the first one is regarding the 2023 hydrant replacement project. The city in the packet, the city did receive 5 bids on January 27th. They ranged from 179,000 to 386,000. SWT Excavating was as read low at $179,763.44. They are out of Galesburg, near the Kalamazoo area. They submitted all their paperwork that was required as part of the bidding process. And as they were as read low, Ab Marsh put together a recommendation to award the contract for this year's hydrant replacement project to SWT. The hydrant replacement project is going to replace 10 hydrants. The map is included also in the packet. These were selected at locations where the city doesn't have a large capital improvement distribution projects that we've kind of been discussing over the last couple months on some of the funding. The funding for this actual award is through an FDCVT grant that the city received in 2021, and that stands for Financially Distressed Cities, Villages, and Townships. The fire chief did also talk about grants that they have. So public safety has gotten these FDCVT grants, and the city in the past have really captured these grants for water improvements. So with that, really, as a summary, SWT Excavating was a contractor that replaced lead services last year in the city. They were actually awarded 4 contracts, did very well in the service replacements here in the city, and they decided to bid on this hydrant replacement project. And we anticipate it to be done this whole year. The contractor has until November to get this work done. We gave them a window of this whole year, just based on getting hydrant materials. They're at 10 different locations in the city, so different schedules and different opportunities would be what we thought would be the right way to do this project and provide the best pricing. So with that said, it's recommended to move forward with SWT unless there's any questions on that specific project.
No, well, I'm the only one here. I don't have any, so I would move it forward, but I do have one question, and it has nothing to do whether going forward or not. The other bidders, have they had any experience with doing the water? I know SWT has been doing the pipelines.
Yeah, so
Are they the only bidder that was involved in that?
B&Z was the second low, so they're a local contractor, but they were about $30,000 more. L.E. Barber has done work in the city locally, and they were in the middle of the pack. Anlon Corporation and D'Agostino Custom Excavation out of Baroda were the 2 highest ones. They have done water type work in the past, recently not in the city, but we have seen them work in other communities.
Commissioner Henry.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Through the chair, I'd like to know if Well, I heard you say there was a grant, so is there a match for the city? And, if, we're using our opportunity to hire any Benton Harbor residents on these jobs, $179,000. We have a 25%,
Hiring.
right, and so my question is, and with the state of Michigan completely in the process of supporting apprenticeships and training, I'm asking through the chair if, Albemarle has taken that in consideration.
Jason?
Yeah, sure. The first, this is an FDCVD grant, and there's no city match on this grant award. Regarding this one specifically, we did not include the local hiring on this smaller project. We are working on the larger distribution projects to put a training component into the larger projects that I had mentioned a couple months ago. This one, just based on the type of work it was with, I think it's going to be very sporadic. SWT, as part of the lead service project, did hire local people. So I don't know if they're still working for them, but this particular one, unfortunately, we do not have that. And I'll kind of go over that when we talk on the next one, because there are some of those type of things in the next project that I'm going to be talking about.
Commissioner Henry, ask you a question.
Absolutely, it did. And did I understand that you have timelines, because the last time we had hydrant replacement, it was a big question as to when it started and how long it's gonna be. So did I hear you say that it was a timeline attached to this contract?
Yes. Yeah. So we had given this hydrant work through November, pretty much the entire construction season, just because it's not isolated. So I think what's going to happen is they're going to end up scheduling 3 or 4, or depending on how they're available. And that was really the strategy behind that, was to provide the best pricing. If we gave them a shorter window, I think they would have had to really concentrate their crews and everything in the town. And also, we have found out that getting materials for water projects is starting to be a pretty task in the industry. So we gave they do have a deadline. They have to be done by November 1st on this contract. So it might take some time to get the hydrants ordered and get their game plan, but they do have a timeline of getting that done this year.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Ice.
Just have one question, Jason. So out of the 10, are all of them operating, or some of them not operating?
These are these are ones that were identified as part of the inspections that Walks Water did for the city a couple of years ago as needing repair. They could not do the surface repairs that they did on these. These were going to require excavation and larger equipment to replace the actual hydrant and the piping that goes to the water main.
So the fire happened right now, they can't use them now?
They're not these ones that we targeted. They're not. Some of them aren't. They're not all totally not operational.
Right.
One of them is at the near in Gene Clark Park.
Mhm.
That was one working with the fire chief on saying, when they have a grill fire or something out there, they pull it, but it doesn't function as they would like. Yep.
Ms. Kennard.
Yes. Would there be any hydrants there on May Street, not too far from the May Street store?
Oh, my map is pretty.
It's not one of those.
If I had my computer, I'd be better. I think I don't know if that's the ones on the 2 that we have on May Street by the 3rd and 1st ward. Yeah, I do know that May Street is scheduled for one of the larger distribution projects, and when that happens in the next several years with additional money, I want to say out of 7 intersections, there's going to be at least 7 hydrants getting replaced on Main Street along with water main.
Okay, the reason I asked because there's a drain there that's almost completely, it fell almost under, you know, and then there's the fire hydrant right close to it. So I'd like to see that paid attention. If you were coming from Broadway,
Okay.
it would be on the left-hand side of the street.
Okay.
And if you were to look there, along there, there's hydrant there that looks bad.
Thank you. If there's no more on this item, we'll move that.
Mr. Chair,
Ms. Mitchell.
just for Ms. Kennard and anyone, if you see something like that, give us a call. Don't wait to come to a meeting. Call down to my office so that we can take care of it.
Okay, I'll do that.
Thank you very much.
And you know, I'll voice if I don't get some action by it.
We move this forward, City Clerk. Next one, number 5, authorization of the city manager to execute a contract with B&Z Company for the contract for the 2023 CDBG sidewalk project. Jason.
Yep, sure. So in your packet, we do have a recommendation letter. There's a few things I wanted to highlight on this one. We did pull bids. The city pulled bids on January 27th, same time as the other project. The city only received 1 bid on this project. Avon Marsh put together a program that was about $400,000 in estimated sidewalk repairs. B&Z bid that project. They were the only bidder at the time for $405,000. So they came right in what we had for our engineer's estimate. Working with Mr. Little, realized that the CDBG fund wasn't at $400,000. It was just about $250,000. So we asked B&Z because they were the only bidder, and if there was other bidders, we would have done the same thing. We asked them if they would hold their unit pricing with a lesser scope of work, and they said yes, they would. Now the CDBG requirements, there's requirements on Section 3 and all sorts of local participation that is required as part of the CDBG funds. The same thing last year that was awarded to Meeks Construction. So they check all the boxes on that. But we only had the 1 bidder. We had multiple bidders that did not submit, that held plans that they did not submit. So we did do a lesser scope, and the sidewalks that we had kind of anticipated are south of Empire on Levette Avenue, and then on Bishop Avenue and Jennings Avenue as part of our scoping out bad sidewalk areas, trying to figure out where we get the most adjacent to homes and whatnot. So we did select those, and that's within the budget of the CDBG funds. Mr. Little and I, there's a requirement to the city to actually have those funds spent by around Memorial Day. So so I have on that schedule that they actually have to have most if not all work done by middle of May. So that is an accelerated project where it'll replace city sidewalks, a few sidewalk ramps, and any sidewalk that's going through people's driveways, and that the driveways won't get replaced, but it's a sidewalk scope project. So we would like to recommend moving that forward with B&Z. B&Z is the local contractor. They had 2 zones last year for the water service replacement, and they performed all their concrete work on their own. So they're capable of doing the removals, the excavation, and really putting the sidewalks down. B&Z does a great job with the residents when they are talking with them.
Thank you, Jason. Any questions from our commissioner officials? No. Ms. Kennard? Mr. Little?
Just one comment. When you give me an update on what we got left, because I have to go back into IDIS and make sure we've done the environmental review on each one of them that we have to do.
Sure.
Ms. Kennard?
One of the things, sir, that I would like to mention, and it's been a danger for a good while, right where that fire is on McAllister, was, a couple of years ago. On the opposite side of the street, there's the Pollard's home. There was a tree that fell, I guess, 4 or 5 years ago. And it up, when the roots,
Yep.
the roots uplifted the sidewalk
Mhm.
there at that street. That's now got a hollow place, and I'm surprised that it hasn't just completely filled with someone walking there. If that hasn't been, taken care of, it's dangerous and that should be looked at.
We'll take a look at, do you know if it's, if you noticed it just recently?
I haven't just been walked there recently.
Yeah.
But it was, when that tree fell over, all the old roots and everything, when
Sure.
the tree fell over, it's a sidewalk where the roots went under, loosened up, and so that made it hollow under there. So when they removed the tree, that sidewalk was still like irregular. And someone not being aware, sometimes even at night, can trip, over the unlevel
Mhm.
part of the sidewalk.
Don't
But
let
at
them
least
walk on
pay
the
close
sidewalk.
attention to
Everybody
that,
walk
so
on the
that it
street.
won't be something that someone come to sue the city because they had an injury from that. Because that was on the tree lawn part where that tree was.
We'll try to identify that and look at that, and if there's any addresses that you could pass along, we'll put it on the list. We're trying to keep an ongoing list of things that come in.
Right,
Okay.
it's on the right-hand side of the street there, right at McAllister.
Yep, okay.
Commissioner Henry.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Well, now that I hear that this project is also, have agreed to the 25% as well as section 3, I'll ask through the chair that the exit reports for all of these projects are presented to the council immediately.
On completion.
Absolutely. We need to know if they actually complied with what they agreed to. And then, so that exit report is very important to us. So please, through the chair, make sure that's available to us.
You got a note on that, Jason?
Yep, I do.
Thank you.
No, that's not Jason.
It is Jason.
No, yeah, I know that's Jason, but Jason is gonna get a report.
Right, and he's
But
gonna
we
give-
need to get the report.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So he'll give it to us with, and what are you asking? Who you asking
I'm
to give it
asking
to?
the city manager to give it to us, because that's who Jason is gonna give it to.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Yeah.
Got that, Mr. Manager?
Got it, sir.
Thank you. So we're moving that one forward. Mrs. Moore, number 6, authorization to pay for filter rehabilitation materials at the water plant. The services of Tom Cope of Integrity Controls and automation to install water plant filter materials, and for the city manager to sign corresponding invoices as needed. Jason?
Yes, yeah, thank you, Commissioner Edwards. Yeah, so in your packet, there's a detailed letter, kind of bringing this to where we're at today. This is due to the city receiving their administrative consent order from Eagle and the unilateral order from EPA on the request for the improvements at the water plant, specifically to the filters. A couple months ago, we talked about the amendment of the state dollars, the state funding that the city received as part of the lead services and the upcoming water distribution and water infrastructure projects. So this is kind of the first step in some of the upgrades at the water plant per those two orders from EPA and Eagle. The Eagle came to the city's water department water plant this past summer and identified needs to upgrade and replace filters 5 through 8. So at the time, that was a major priority for everyone. Tom Koth and F&V operations and city staff went ahead and ordered the filter items last year. And so now they're here, or now they're being ready to be shipped and starting replacement at the water plant. And really, this resolution allows for payment for those materials. Tom Coates has been working on with integrity control automation. He's been working with city staff on many of the upgrades at the water plant when it comes to controls, updating the SCADAs for the automations and things of that nature that has been being done at the plant for both F&V operations and city staff. The second page of the letter, it shows that these filter costs, and there's a lot of backup on what is actually getting purchased with materials and actual Tom Coates services, but it comes off of that line item that the city approved as part of that grant amendment for the water infrastructure dollars. So it's included in those dollars. There's no city match on these dollars. It's all budgeted from a previously approved grant amendment that the city had completed doing.
So all costs is covered. This is just to authorize payment.
That is correct. Yep. So so we're just looking for moving this forward, possibly to start the process of getting those vendors paid.
What's the usually what is the time span from ordering to delivery? What is the average time?
Big pieces of equipment like that at the plant are going to take 6 to 12 months, depending on exactly what it is. So these are filters. They put the order in June, and they are starting to get materials on it just recently. So that's over 8 months. They do take a long time, especially if something needs to have special fabrication. It's just something that doesn't come right off of a shelf sometimes. The valves do. Even the valves, though, in today's industry, have some very long lead times on more standard items.
Thank you. Any officials? No, Ms. Kennard?
Sir, I'd like to ask you all, a number of years, I guess about 7, maybe 8 years ago, did you all overhaul the update of the water plant?
Back in 2010, the city.
Yeah, because I know we're still paying for that.
Yep, the city, there was an expansion at the plant to add some additional clarifiers and update some of the control systems that were at the plant.
Okay, because what I was seeing that there was millions of dollars that was paid for that, was complete updating the water plant. And so I was just wondering, in that few of years, are we having problems like such as they did have come about? What is the guarantee that we won't be back in the same shape in a few years from now with what you all are gonna do again there?
Yeah, so the city staff and F&B operations and others put together this list of items here. And my understanding is that these filters need replacing because they have not been replaced in the past. They were not part of the upgrade project in 2010. The 2010 really concentrated on the expansion. So they've hit their useful life. The other thing was these are repairing, and these are statements or requests directly from Eagle to replace these lines or replace these filters. The city did repair filters 9 and 10. These are replacing filters 5 through 8, and that will put the city in compliance with the orders that both EPA and Eagle had put together.
Now, would you explain to me, you said expansion, that was meant for the expansion. Where did we expand? Because I know it's just a little part there, so you couldn't expand with building it larger. What was the expansion?
The additional filters and clarifiers treatments that was added on to the water plant. So it was, if you're familiar with that building, there's kind of an older side, and then there's a newer section, And a lot of the upgrades in 2010 was to add that equipment to the newer the building.
Okay, I'm just amazed at how much it costs and we get paying for that. And I thought the entire works of upgrading that was all done at that particular time.
No, it was some of the components in the plant are still older, and a lot of these improvements are repairing those as part of the laboratory. A couple of additional items in there.
So in other words, you'll have a clear understanding as to what is being done this time as a completion of that operational, putting it in good standards of being operating like it should.
All these components are being upgraded as part for really the to allow addressing those orders on EPA and from Eagle. So even things are continuing to be inspected. I know the city just inspected the reservoir, for example, just recently, and there might be some improvements to be needed on the reservoir as well.
So that'll be additional money to that.
Possibly, the idea there is to work within the money that has been received by the city, or possibly go after additional funds out there. That's
good.
Thank you, Jason. We'll move this forward. Now, Mr. Little has returned. We can move to item 7, presentation of Hall Park lights, please.
What we wanted to do is to show you part of the planning that's currently going on, specifically in this instance regarding parking related to Hall Park. As you know, we've submitted a SPARK grant that we're hoping to receive and start doing work in the park. But we're also pursuing another grant that could do some supplemental parking, cleanup, and some other stuff. We wanted to just tell you what we're looking at and get any thoughts that you might have on it. Now, this is showing basically the creek, the waterway. Up here is Highland, and this area in here is Hall Park. Now, we're looking at providing some parking that can be funded from the source that we're looking to get grant funds, and which has to be out of the floodway. Can you bring it down, please, if you can? Thank you. This area is generally considered sort of floodway as it gets down here close to the creek. Of the options that were looked at, you'll see these. This is in the park, this is in the park. And we basically said no parking inside the boundaries of the park. We don't want to reduce the size of the park. We want to keep it intact as it is. And looking at other places for supplemental park, and just for your orientation, where people park right down, they come off Highland here, and they pull off right down in here. There's a fence that runs right down the side of Highland there. People park in the grassy area there. We're looking at, and our recommendation to was one, let's look at doing the park here, which is sort of partway up the hill there on the west side of the Ox Creek, right off Highland. We also are looking at in this section right down here, which is right on Highland. Thank you. Yeah, in this section that's right on Highland there, that we look at taking out a little bit of that boulevard there and putting in diagonal parking right along there, making it much more convenient for people who may park and have to bring things into the park, umbrellas, whatever, food and things like that. And that would be right along the side here. And it won't go all the way up the hill where it gets steep, but we'll bring it down and toward this way. The other option is this street right here. We're looking at possibly doing diagonal parking along this street here, which not only will serve the Hall Park and events and things going on there, but might also, once we get something going with the Armory here, also help to support parking for that. As this one will also support parking for things that might go in on this side. We are still maintaining in our plan a possible skating rink and a possible splash pad for young kids on this side along. That's where the Michigan Gas just did theirs between Main and Highland. So this parking area, the diagonal parking along Highland there facing toward the park, and the street right across from there, those are the ones those are the areas that we recommended. No to this and no to this because it would reduce the park. And this is just a little bit too far away. So.
Lights. Commissioner Henry.
How much of Highland would have to be taken for those vertical parking?
Not a great deal, I'm gonna say approximately half a car length or so, because as I said, right now you've got a boulevard there, then the sidewalk, and then you've got some posts, utility poles there. And if they took out part of the boulevard and angled into there, you'd have probably about half a car length out in the street.
Half a car length. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any questions on this? None? Thank you. This one, Mr. Nard.
Have they finished cleaning up the
Creek?
waterways of that Ox Creek?
Oh, no, that'll be a minute. That'll be a minute. But I will say this, I'll say this as I get through, but no, that'll be a minute. That brings us to our last item, which is Parks and Rec update. Actually, it's what we just got, really. There's no more update I can give outside of what's already been given. But to more of your question, Ms. Kennard, we'll make this not Earth Day, which will be April 22nd, 2023, from 12 to 3. We'll be at Hall Park. And the committee, we also working on different festivities or whatever that's going to be going on there. But you can mark that down. Earth Day, April 22nd, 2023, from 12 to 3. That's what I have so far. You can invite people out. We will be cleaning. If I'm not mistaken, before Earth Day, it was called Spring Clean. I think that's what we always called it. Now it's Earth Day. I think it's the same thing. Other than that,
So that's all park, sir?
Hall Park,
What time is that?
12 to 3. If anybody would like to volunteer in setting up, please feel free to do. It's not that much setup, but welcoming committee, whatever, passing out gloves, whatever, thing coming out. That's not any, Commissioner Henry.
I wanna just go one more time through you, through the chair, that the Parks and Recs,
Mm-hmm.
there's an exit report that I'm looking for from last year. It's February already. We should be looking in this year for Parks and Recs. And I have not gotten a report at all.
Last week, exit
Last
report.
year.
Oh, exit report for the whole year.
For the parks for the whole year. We're supposed to get a report out as to what happened, why did it happen, who did it happen to, and when it happened. And that it needs to be given to us now, then we don't have to, if we made any mistakes, we don't have to make them mistakes anymore. If we did good things, we can make it better. So, through the chair, will you please ask for our exit reports for Parks and Rec?
Will do. Mr. Little or Mr. Mitchell, whoever that is. I will say this for Parks and Recs. I don't even know if I've been here a year. I don't think it's been a year. But just to understand your Parks and Rec, I think we all have to take in consideration, I'm just going to go since I've been here, 2014. Hall Park was Hall Park. That's it, by name. Since I've been here in the 8 years, there has been activity and movement toward revitalizing all the parks. Exit reports, all those reports, yes, they would help us. And the only thing I can say to that is the work that I was doing on parks, I never thought about getting the report. Because y'all know me, I just go get it done. Y'all see the report, you just see it. But for paperwork and for all of those of us, yes, I totally agree with you. Totally. So I don't know how far back we can even go
I just want
with an exit
21,
report, because I don't even know
21, 22, that's all I want.
21, 22? Okay.
And we got a new season we should be planning for spring and summer,
oh,
right
yes.
now, in February.
Oh, yes, well, yes, that's taking place, yes. And
Okay.
again, let me ask that while you at it. So I keep getting this request of different programs, whatever they are. And I have to say this again. Parks and Recs does not have a payroll. So if anybody would want to volunteer and help me with certain activities, tell them to give me a call, 269-277-6489. Volunteer. You ain't getting paid, no lunch, no barbecue. Give them some free water.
That's a sad announcement.
Yeah, but that's the true one though.
Hey,
So with no more agenda items on the agenda, those of you, don't forget, if you have any sidewalks or other complaints, please give Rona a call. She will schedule that. And that will go in turn to Mr. Mitchell. And Mr. Mitchell will see that it goes to the appropriate departments. And that's it. Don't forget about your K9 mask, free gloves at the water payment window. That being said, love everybody in this building and see you at the next meeting or next whatever we do. Thank you very much. Appreciate your time.
I was the first. Right down.